Liam Dunphy's daughter. Missing 9/2/1903. Unk. Hills outside of Ewing, MT. Age at disappearance. Infant. Ewing is now a ghost town in southern Montana, just 10 miles north of Wyoming. There is one building in the town that has supposedly been renovated for a local park ranger. The scenery around the town is gorgeous, high peaks and big mountains. As an interesting side note, as you are driving toward Ewing, there is a turnout at a location called Devil's Canyon where the city can be seen. One found a series of articles describing this event, with the first being near the beginning of September 1903. The articles state that on approximately September 2nd, 1903, the William Dunphy family was living in the hills above Ewing while Mr. Dunphy was prospecting. According to another article, the Clinton Morning, August 23, 1903, the infant daughter was carried off one afternoon by a wild animal, reported. There was no information on the type of animal that carried off the girl, but there was information that there was an extensive search. In the same article quoted above, it described what Dunphy was doing after the daughter vanished. While Dunphy was hunting in the mountains, he came on a wolf den which showed signs of being occupied. He waited for a long time and then entered. As no wolf came forth, he decided to enter the den and see for himself what was in it. As he entered the place, he heard the cry of a child. Advancing, he saw a sight that almost turned his hair white. Lying on a bed of grass at the end of the den was a big mother wolf with several pups beside her, while at her side was his lost baby, trying her best to get a supper from the mother wolf. The wolf simply frowned when the man approached and made no attempt to escape. Dunphy got his daughter back. She wasn't injured and was supposedly well-nourished. Newspapers in Red Lodge, Montana, had this story validated by two other residents of Ewing. There was never any other clarity as to the size of the wolf or other specific details of the recovery. Summary. I've written about other young girls that were supposedly taken by something that was described as a large wolf or bear. This is the first article I ever found where an adult got a close view of the abductor. Just in case you were not aware, news articles in the late 1800s and early 1900s usually did not include children's names in articles. They described children by their association to a parent. The fact that Dunphy's daughter's name wasn't in this article was not unusual. I view the location of this incident as unique and important. Ewing was a remote city. The Dunphys lived in the hills outside the city, extremely remote. In Missing 411 Western United States, I wrote about other incidents involving children taken in Montana by mammals described as wolves or bears. Kenneth Crandall. Missing 3/13/1916-6 p.m., Shepherd, Montana. Age at disappearance, 21 years. The Crandalls lived on a ranch 9 miles northwest of Shepherd, Montana. The Shepherd residence was located approximately 20 miles northeast of Billings and 8 miles south of a series of mountains. The area between the residence and mountains was mostly filled with dry sagebrush. On March 13, 1916, the Crandalls finished dinner and Kenneth went outside to play. Nearly 2 hours after dinner, Mrs. Crandall went to look for her son and could not find him. It was also about this time that she realized that Kenneth's dog, a collie, was gone as well. The parents searched for several hours until they felt they needed assistance and made the drive into Shepherd to summon assistance from the sheriff. Deputy Sipe responded to the Crandall Ranch and took charge of the search. Everyone was initially concerned with nearby Razor Creek. The flow in the creek wasn't much, though, and it was soon searched and discounted. Hundreds of locals volunteered to scour the countryside looking for the boy. There were hundreds of ranch heirs and farmers on horseback looking everywhere around the Crandall property. 3 days after Kenneth vanished, Kenneth's collie returned Home, obviously very hungry. The Crandalls fed the dog and it immediately started to whine as though it wanted the family to fall. Lo it! The Crandalls started to fall jaw the dog, as is described in this March 25th article in the Yellowstone News. The animal, greatly excited, followed the trail to a crossroads 6 miles from the ranch, where evidently he left the youngster to go back for help, and the baby's body was found 2 miles from that point. He had died from hunger and exposure. It appears the little 2.5-year-old boy had wandered an amazing 8 miles. Summary. It's hard to imagine that searchers ever believed that Kenneth could have wandered 8 miles from his residence, thus the rescue. Heirs didn't find him. The deputy sheriff stated that it was believed that Kenneth died inside the first 24 hours. If he did die that quickly, I don't believe the boy had starved to death. That's impossible. He had just eaten dinner. It's also hard to believe that any boy could have hiked 8 miles while being only 2.5 years old. In researching the articles describing this disappearance, there was quite a variety of descriptions of the boy. Some articles stated the boy was 3 years old. Some said the boy was found just a mile from his ranch. It is truly amazing how some papers can twist the story and get it so wrong. There is a documented cluster of missing people just southeast of Billings to which Kenneth's disappearance could be added. Murray Walkup Miller, missing 10/24/36, Unk, Sapphire Mountains, Montana. Age at disappearance, 9 years. The Sapphire Mountains are considered some of the roughest mountains in all of Montana. They start in an area south of Missoula and continue 6 miles south to just east of the Idaho border. This is an area where there exists a cluster of missing people, as is identified in missing 411 western United States. On Saturday, October 24th, 1936, 9-year-old Murray Miller was with his stepfather and brother in an area of the Sapphire Mountains cutting firewood. The stepfather asked Murray and his brother to walk to a nearby creek and get a pail of water. The boys got to the creek. Murray filled the pail and started to walk back with his brother. The boys traveled a short distance, and then Murray spilled the water and had to go back and fill it again. The second time Murray walked back alone, and he never returned. Murray's stepfather called the boy's name and searched for him until he felt that there was no hope without getting assistance. The sheriff and state police were called and soon had dozens of searchers on scene. An October 26th article in the Reading Eagle had this description of the search: nearly 500 men, including 125 soldiers from Fort Missoula, searched the mountains in the Burnt Fork region where a lad said by Sheriff James Oliva to be Murray Miller, 9, was reported lost. Searchers kept a dozen bonfires burning all night in hope of attracting the boy after about 300 men had failed in yesterday's hunt. Searchers failed to find Murray after a 4-day non-stop search. On Wednesday, the 5th day Murray was missing, 2 Unit D states. Forest Service employees were walking near a creek in the Bitterroot Forest not far from a lookout tower. An October 29, 1936, article in the Salt Lake Tribune had this description of finding Murray. It was only an accident that we found the child, Daigle said. I was going up Rock Creek with Charles Lear when we noticed a boy across the creek. We called him, but he couldn't hear us. He finally waved his arm and Lear waded the stream and brought him back. Lear and Daigle were not at Rock Creek looking for the boy. They were there on another assignment. Murray told the Rangers and his family an interesting story. He stated that the second time he was bringing the pail of water back, he couldn't tell where he was. He stated that he kept walking and was lost. When found, Murray was extremely tired and semi-conscious. The Billings Gazette article of October 29, 1936, had the following description of where Murray was found. Murray, the son of Mr. and Mrs. Ray Miller of Stevensville, Montana, had wandered 15 miles from where he left his stepfather last Saturday. The mountain range in which he was lost is considered the roughest part of the West. There was never any mention of what Murray was wearing when he disappeared or where he was found. According to the book Lost Person Behavior by Robert Kester, a child 7 to 9 years of age will be found at a distance of 7 miles or less from the point they were last seen in 95% of the incidents. Murray was found over 2 times the distance quoted in the Kester book. He was not only twice the distance, but also twice the distance in some of the roughest country in the West. But that's not the only important information. Remember the statement from the United States Forest Service employees that found Murray. He was found in close proximity to a fire tower, meaning he was near the summit of one of the tallest mountains in the area. After 15 miles of hiking, we are LEDTO believe that Murray Miller then decided to hike up Rainier, an unbelievable feat. Sued Mary. After I had completed the first 2 missing 411 books, I received hundreds of emails from people who had experienced or had similar experiences to those I have described in the books. One of these stories dealt with a man and his brother that lived in a southern state. The man stated that he had lived on the family property for a lifetime, working the ranch and walking the property thousands of times. The man explained that one afternoon he and his brother had gone out onto the property looking for lost cows. They traveled on the property to an area near a large river and suddenly felt very uncalm or terrible. Things around them went quiet and they suddenly didn't recognize anything around them. Remember, this was their property they had known for a lifetime. They continued to walk and still could not recognize a river or the area they were walking. He stated it was frightening. Eventually, sounds started to come back, and they walked through an area of heavy foliage and started to hear their dad calling their names. He stated that it appeared they had been only 100 yards from their ranch house but couldn't hear anything. Their father stated that he had fired 3 shots, trying to help them find their way back. The boys had heard nothing. He stated that this has never happened to him since, and nobody on the ranch has ever experienced something similar. As I read Murray's description of walking back toward his step-father for the second time and his statement that he didn't recognize where he was, it reminded me of the story above. It also makes me wonder how many times others in the wild have experienced a similar situation and not realized what the ranchers did at the time. The rancher stated that he feels he and his brother walked through some type of time warp, tunnel, or portal as they were definitely in some other place and lost for a period of time. In an agreement to not expose the rancher's identity, I won't name him or the location where the incident occurred. Think about many of the other cases I have written about in other books and imagine how many of those instances people have described similar circumstances. It's frightening. Sam Adams. Missing I-0/27/58, Unk, Chamberlain Mountains, southwest of Ovando, Montana. Age at disappearance, 39 years. Sam Adams was hunting in an area of the Chamberlain Mountains southwest of Ovando and approximately 20 miles southeast of Seeley Lake. Adams was hunting with 2 friends, Ed Hodges, age 40, and Calvin Trusty, age 52, when they somehow got separated. On October 27, 1958, Adams was reported as missing. The area is extremely rugged with steep peaks and deep valleys. Searchers interviewed Sam's wife, and she confirmed that he was armed with a rifle and pistol and had warm clothing, matches, and food. Multiple private hunting parties called off their vacations to look for Sam. The Montana National Guard, the Powell County Sheriff's Department, and Montana Fish and Games all worked together in a grid pattern to find a location where Sam may have established a camp. After 17 days of intensive search efforts, Sam was not located. Sam was hunting with dedicated friends, and they didn't give up. their efforts to find their partner. Ed and Calvin took every possible weekend and traveled to the Chamberlain Mountains to search for their friend. On July 12th, the efforts of Ed and Calvin paid dividends. A July 14th, 1959, article in the Deseret News had the following. The party found Adam's rifle smashed in 3 parts, his wallet, shoes, and tattered bits of clothing. They also found bear signs and remnants of half-digested clothing, human bones, and hair. The shoes were scarred with teeth marks. Evidence of the battle was strewn in a 50-foot circle. The theory that was forwarded by law enforcement was that Sam wounded a bear. He used all but 2 bullets in the attempt to kill the creature and only injured it. In the same Deseret News article, he apparently crawled alongside a log and tried to light a fire to get warm. He removed the shoelaces, probably to use as tourniquets. Then it appears he used his last 2 rounds to some
Mon aide.
The bear then reappeared, and he used his gun as a club. Authorities then claimed that the bear devoured Sam on sight or took part of the body to its den. How authorities could make all of these assumptions is truly remarkable. I've spoken to several outdoorsmen about the story, and there are many that question the logic behind the theory of what happened. How could anyone know the sequence of when Sam fired his rounds? Articles state that a special team was sent to investigate the scene, as it baffled those that originally found the carnage. All of the articles claim that the bear was enraged and that there was a wild battle.
If
the bear was enraged and there was an epic battle, it would be very doubtful that Sam had the opportunity to get 3 huge whacks at the bear with his rifle, subsequently breaking it into 3 pieces. If he had time to whack the bear, why not shoot the bear? Many could understand getting in 1 good whack, but then you'd probably be taken down by the bear and be in a hand-to-hand struggle. If that was the only weapon you had. A November 1958, article in the Montana Standard ended with the following paragraph. Trusty said Adams was warmly dressed, carried food, and was armed with a pistol and rifle. Calvin was Sam's hunting partner and would have known what Sam was carrying. The theory propagated by law enforcement specifically excluded the fact that Sam was carrying a pistol that was left out of their explanation, and a pistol that was never found after extensive searches at the scene. Authorities tried to explain away the fact that the vast majority of Sam was never found by claiming that a bear carried him to its den. The last item that authorities tried to explain was why Sam's shoelaces were removed from his boots. The explanation forwarded was that Sam used them as tourniquets. Again, authorities are grasping at a logical explanation, even though they have no rationale to put forward that explanation. They have no way of knowing if Sam was seriously injured before he was fatally injured, or if the bear took his life when he was attacked at his final location.
Summary.
Readers must remember that Sam's friends had been searching for dozens of weekends and had been unable to locate him. It was almost 7 months after he vanished that this location was found, in a heavily wooded area 15 miles southwest of Ovando. One article did state searchers felt there were 2 different scenes, 200 yards apart. 2 of the articles stated that they found Sam's belt and socks, an interesting set of items to mention. The articles didn't say sock, they said socks, indicat. They found 2. If they found Sam's belt and socks, how were both of them removed from his body without being devoured by a bear? Authorities claim that Sam used his last 2 rifle rounds to summon assistance. Why wouldn't Sam have used his pistol to defend himself from the supposed bear? Why didn't searchers find Sam's pistol? Why would a hunter that had presumably been attacked by a bear that could come back for a final kill use his last 2 rounds to shoot into the air? I, along with other hunters, have tried to understand why you can break a rifle into 3 different pieces. It wouldn't be an SY task under any conditions, let alone during a fight with a bear. The remnants of what was found of Sam were described as scant remains. If this was all they found of Sam, you wouldn't expect to find his belt, hat, shoes, billfold, socks, and knife. Oh yes, the knife. What about Sam utilizing the knife as a weapon in a struggle? GLE for life? The location where Sam was eventually found was only a mile
and
a half from the point where the main search was centered in November. This seems like a very short distance to maintain a search for 7 months. The death of Sam Adams reminds me of 3 other deaths that were chronicled in Missing 411 Western United States. The disappearance of Bart Schlayer from the Yukon Territory, Charles McCullough from Crater Lake National Park, and Robert Springfield from Montana. All men had supposedly been killed and consumed by bears, yet intact clothing was found around their bodies. McCullough's belt, Schlayer's pants, and Springfield's vest were found intact, and all 3 individuals had been consumed by something. I don't fault law enforcement for trying to explain away a calm, placated situation. Communities expect law enforcement agencies to always have the ability to explain anything. That's the comforting aspect of local government, making the community feel as though everything is under control. It isn't until you start to review cases from throughout the United States that specific patterns in unique cases start to make themselves known. I do believe that Sam Adams was probably consumed at some point by a bear, as bear remains were found in the area. There are too many unanswered questions, however, to put this story into a tight little box and put it away. Could a bear have killed Sam? Why wasn't it stated that human remains or clothing was found in bear scat? Probably because they weren't.
where
Is Sam's pistol?